Good morning. For any of you that are concerned about the way some of us are dressed today, we have an annual celebration called Boo at the UU here. We celebrate Halloween, which we'll save the lecture for another time, is an ancient and sacred festival in many traditions. And you are invited to dress in costume for today. Others of us just look this way all the time. Welcome, everyone. First, gratitude. You hear me talk about teamwork a lot, probably more than anybody wants to hear. It is soul-building and life-affirming to see teams connect and work together. Gratitude. Second, we have a practice in this congregation where we share loving kindness for ourselves, for those we love, for those who are difficult for us, who might even mean us harm, and for the whole cosmos. If you know these words, you're welcome to say them with me. Or you can just sit in silence and hear them in your heart. Join me in our loving kindness meditation. First, we bring to mind ourselves. And we say to ourselves, may you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. May you know love. Then we bring to mind those that are close to us that we love, our children, our partners, our friends. May you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. May you know love. We bring to mind those who are difficult for us, even those who might mean us harm, because we value their human dignity, their place in this shared world with us. May you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. May you know love. And finally, we bring to mind all beings through all time, the wonder and mystery and unity of our cosmos beyond all reckoning and immediate in our experience right now. Our interconnectedness with all life through all time and beyond time. May you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. May you know the joy of your own true nature. May you be healed. May you be a source of healing for all others. May you know love. Aaron is going to lead us in a hymn different than the one printed in your bulletin. It's in your teal hymnal, number 1031. I'm going to ask you to remain seated today. Sing if you wish, or let the music just wash over if you wish.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Alan Jenkins, and I serve as president of the Board of Trustees of Your Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. And welcome to my monthly eye test. Welcome, members, friends, and visitors this morning, whether you are in the sanctuary or joining us virtually. Hey, y'all. We are a welcoming congregation, and whether you're in the room or online, you are valued and you are loved. And now, for a few important announcements. You can find these and more on the sheet titled Connect at the back of your bulletin. Welcome, visitors. If you're visiting with us this morning, we would love to meet you to share more about the life of this congregation. Visitors' cards may be found in the pocket on the back of the chair in front of you. Please feel welcome to fill one out and place it in the offering plate during the service so that we can connect with you. And also, if you just happen to see me wander around, come around and say hey. The Upstate Pride March and Festival. This Pride March and Festival will be held on Saturday, November 5th at Barnett Park. The march begins at 11 a.m. and the festival will run from noon to 5 p.m. As many of you know, the very first Pride March and Festival was held on our church grounds, and we are proud to have participated in it every single year since. We have an amazing team leading us this year: Stacy Jackson, Lacey Lipe, Faith Taylor, and Mary Underwood. We want you to come to Pride and enjoy the day, but we also need your help. We need volunteers to help set up, staff our tent, break down the tent, and bake cookies, and, just to have fun. Sign up via the information in the weekly happenings or the sign-up sheet that you'll find on the easel in the lobby. It's an easel and not a sandwich board, as Scott told me earlier. The UUCS Restrooms for All project. For several months, the RE, the Buildings and Grounds, and Long-Range Planning Committees have been in discussion about the possibilities of making the restrooms near the RE wing both gender inclusive and wheelchair accessible. These discussions have been respectful, educational, and positive. And we want you to be a part of that conversation too. These committees are inviting input on the ideas they are considering through both the congregational conversation and email feedback. Please attend a dialogue on November 6th after the Sunday service, or email your input to Fred Stoll at the information in your Connect. Example concepts of what they're considering are on display in the sanctuary foyer. We have already learned a great deal from one another about this conversation and about this topic. The possibility of finding a way forward together that benefits every one of us is great. Scott writes these, and sometimes that's a fancy way of saying we can do this, y'all. Our UUCS is a place of warmth, kindness, welcome, and safety. And that is because of each and every one of you. Every time we come together in this place, we make this world a better place. It brings me great comfort and joy to see you all here and to be with you today. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Carter, and along with the creative genius of my wife, Robin, for the last few years, I've had the privilege of serving as a stewardship chair for our church. And stewardship, like Scott has mentioned, teamwork is a critical, just the way that we do things here. And stewardship is the teamwork of your financial generosity being combined with your creative energy and talents and time to push forward the mission that we have here at UUCS. And I am honored this morning to be passing the torch and introducing you to the new stewardship chair that has taken on this new important role for our congregation. And I'd first like to just praise the UUCS board and the leadership development team for their dedication in just scouring Spartanburg to find such a highly qualified person to take on this task that is so crucial to our congregation. Amanda Richardson, along with her husband Jack, her daughter Ella Jane, and her son Oliver, found us during the pandemic. And if you'll remember from a few months ago, actually joined our membership here. And both her and her husband have jumped right in and putting their great talents and experience to work. Amanda is a graduate of Wofford and has spent the last 15 years actually working professionally in fundraising, marketing, communications, all the wonderful things that make stewardship go round and go round. And so you are getting someone that is way more highly experienced than I am, and so I'm excited to see all the amazing creative things that she has already started brainstorming on for the annual fund drive that'll be coming up and starting in January. But Amanda brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I could just imagine the greatness that is going to come from just continuing to push the idea and notion of what stewardship means for us beyond just money and finances, but putting your passions and your own experience to work to make this a better place, a better community for us to live in. So as Amanda comes up to say hello and to let you put a face with a name, let's give her a round of applause for being willing to put her talents to work.
Thanks. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Brannon. Like he mentioned, we found UECS during the pandemic. We were watching the services online, started coming in person last summer, and then joined earlier this year. We were not looking for this place, but it kind of found us. And It was really the radical hospitality that you all showed to us that made us fall in love with this place. I am so grateful for all of the people that came before me, for continuing to care for this community and this place so that it was here when we needed to find it. And I look forward to continuing that care alongside of you all. And we have a really, really fun way to do this next month. And for that, I will pass it over to Lee, my queen. Yes. Thank you.
Good morning, y'all. I am here to talk to you about the UUCS auction. Formal dress is not required, but it is to come to Boo at the UU today. The auction this year is going to be on November 12th from 3 to 5. We are going to move back into Wild Hall. We are going to go back to a potluck style, and starting about on October 30th, we'll have sign-up sheets out in the foyer, so just keep an eye out for that. Right now, we are looking for donations. So if you have anything that you think, wow, I may not be using this, but somebody else sure could, feel free to come speak to me or Virginia. We're both the auction chairs. We are looking for anything that can be used in our live auction. So if you have, say, a vacation home that you would like to rent out for free for us to use, we would love to see that. We've already gotten things like phones, a steam cleaner, and that's just from Robin. Anything in your house that you think might be of value. We are also looking for any kind of artwork you'd like to share. We are having a silent auction for baskets that will come from our community and from our church members. So if you feel led to put together, say, a Christmas basket or some kind of other themed basket, let us know. We will also have knitting items that have been knitted by our congregation for part of our silent auction as well. And if you remember last year, we also had a fun raffle where there were smaller items where you could buy tickets and those items would be raffled off. So if you have anything that you think might work in this, please come and speak with me. More than happy to talk to you. We are also looking for volunteers to help our auction run smooth. So if you would like to be here all afternoon and have a great time with me in Virginia, please also come speak to me. We absolutely love having volunteers. And if you have any questions, just come speak to me. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you all very much.
Good morning. My name is Steffi Gillum, and I, along with Robin Carter, will be your worship associates this morning. We will begin our service by lighting our chalice with two readings. First, a network of mutuality. We read from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, which was quoted last week by our guest speaker, Charles Mann. It is also printed as a reading in our silver hymnal, number 584. Please join in reading responsively, recalling our speaker last week and all that we are called to do together. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day, we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. And from the book, The Invention of Nature, a biography of the extraordinary 19th century explorer and scientist Alexander von Humboldt. Nature is a living whole, Humboldt said. One single life had been poured over stones, plants, animals, and humankind. Humboldt was not so much interested in finding new isolated facts, but in connecting them. Individual phenomena were important in their relation to the whole. Join now in a congregational hymn, hymn number 207, Earth Was Given a Garden. Rise and join in singing as you are able.
We share joys and concerns at our Rippling Bowl, as is our custom here at UUCS. Releasing a shell or stone into the waters creates a ripple where joys can be multiplied and sorrows lessened. This is a time-honored tradition where we are encouraged to release our joys and sorrows into this caring community. I've noticed that several folks use this time to also silently release what author Anne Lamott calls one of three essential prayers: help, thanks, wow. Help, thanks, wow. Come as we share our joys and concerns together.
words of our congregational covenant capture who we are, what we value, and how we strive to live together in this world without the requirement of a shared belief. The words are not passive, they're active. It's something we reach for, fail at, and then aim for again. The words of the covenant are printed in today's order of service. I invite you to please join me now in speaking these living words together. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical minds and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief.
Thanks, Effie. I continue to be reminded that I dubbed this time in our service at one point, Holy Chaos. Maybe it's stuck because it's true, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Take a few moments to greet those around you, being considerate of everyone's personal preferences for greetings. Feel free to remain seated if desired. I'll call us back to our seats, so don't get too carried away, y'all. But now, let the holy chaos begin. This time as much as I do. Y'all do, yay. When we share our gifts, each one of us sharing who we are and what we have to offer, gifts of time and energy and vision and resources, our gifts combine. We can create something greater than us all. We care for one another and our community. We do this together. Together, we can create the world we know is possible. In this spirit, let us now share our financial gifts to support the fiscal budget of this community we cherish.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak. Her sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul, like the
Join me in silence. If you listen just very carefully, you can hear the revelers downstairs getting ready for us. It's pretty good to hear through a story and a half of air and then concrete floor. Just listen to those people who love us and who are preparing joy for us. Then think about what it must sound like to them when we move around to shake each other's hands. I invite you to imagine a man in his early 30s with 3 companions standing at over 19,000 feet up in elevation in Snowfield, the side of what was understood at that time to be the highest mountain in the world by Western science's best reckoning. Notably, later in the lives of these men, they yearned to climb the Himalayan mountains to see what those were like, and they would have learned they had not been on the highest mountains in the world. But they're standing in what would become Ecuador after the liberation of South American continent from colonial Spanish rule. Those 4 men stood freezing with altitude sickness, trying to take disciplined scientific measurements on their trek across thin ridges and ice in 1802. No special equipment, no special climbing gear. Their souls shredded by the rocks they had walked over, standing up there looking out across the world from the highest vantage point any known human being had ever enjoyed. Alexander von Humboldt was a young, aspiring German scientist at the turn into the 19th century. He spent 5 years traveling throughout Latin America, studying and learning, developing a knowledge base that he would spend the next 30 years documenting and writing about in book after book after book. At the end of his life, he was perhaps the most famous person in the Western world. Every place that we know of that is named Humboldt, rivers, counties, universities, entire education systems in other countries are all named for him. And the remarkable breakthroughs in scientific thought and imagination that his devoted, driving search for truth yielded for all of us. But this was before all that. And he and 3 steadfast friends, their porters having left them behind 6,000 feet before, standing there at the edge of their own lives, at the threshold of what human beings could endure, looking out over the world. You can see on the front of your bulletin an illustration that was developed from Humboldt's studies and sketches. He worked with whole teams of artists to try to bring life, visual representations of complex data. Imagine a person endeavoring to do that in their life, trying to bring to life all that he had seen and understood. What you can see is a comparison of 5 mountain ranges from different points around the globe, and not just their elevation or their snow lines, but what the floor is like at different elevation points, all the way up the mountain, and how those compare across continents. Because Humboldt had the profound insight that life is interconnected. That just seems obvious to us today. We may not know how to live it. We may regret that we don't know how to live it, if not now, then in a few short years. But we hear that said all the time. Humboldt was the Western mind that broke that through into Western thinking. The world is radically interconnected. And as he stood there on that mountain, he had an insight, a vision, that life in the world works as a whole. That life gives space to life, nurtures life, moves life. And that by comparison, we can see emerging before us in our limited understanding this web of life opening to our consciousness. And as he stood there, he saw not only how plants in the Alps compared to plants in the Andes, or imagined what fauna in the high Himalayas was like in comparison to fauna on mountain ranges in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, miles and miles and miles from any continental shore. He saw all this, but something more. He saw us in it too. People. And what our lives are in this world that is bigger than us, that is beyond us and a part of us, and to which we all belong. Humboldt consistently expressed throughout his life a profound care for other human beings. This driven, relentless, disciplined, extremely intellectual man. Not always the kindest man. Nonetheless cared very deeply for other people. When he was a mining inspector in what would become Germany, studying the geological formation of mountains to understand how ore could be extracted, rising quickly through the bureaucratic ranks of the Prussian state. He stopped to design masks to help the miners have better air filtration when they went down into the mines to do the work that his research was sending them to do. When he arrived in what today is Venezuela and began his ecstatic researches, even in the midst of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, learning all that he could, he was horrified to witness firsthand the market for enslaved people in the village that was his temporary home. And he notated with specificity what he saw happening to people stolen from Africa and sold in the Americas. And for the rest of his life, he spoke to rascals like Thomas Jefferson sitting in the White House, and Napoleon Bonaparte trying to run the world, and also Haiti, and wrote over and over and over again in his books about the abomination that slavery is, the travesty of human life that it causes, and the wreck of economies that it creates. Vast wealth quickly, rotten to the core. On that first scientific expedition, he became a lifelong abolitionist and relentlessly spoke out against enslavement for the rest of his life. When he journeyed down the Orinoco River and traveled through the vast rainforest that we are cutting down every day, he took time to make notes about indigenous languages and to comprehend not just words and phrases, but the structures of those languages and the meanings they were trying to communicate. The work of ethnography and linguistics. And he vouched for the brilliance of indigenous people to a European audience that consistently identified the indigenous people of the Americas as less than barely human, subhuman. He insisted that indigenous languages were on a par with any European language. And he should know his brother was one of the most famous classical linguists in Germany of that century. He used his name and his learning and his diligence to insist that the arrogance of Western culture was destructive to the world and blinding to that culture itself, and to use his love of research and detail to give example after example after example of language and practices, good farming, good hunting, sustainable practices, and drawings of archaeological finds that revealed civilizations to surpass many in Europe, and equivalent to the oldest civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia. He pushed back on the dehumanization of our fellow human beings on the continent where we reside because he cared about people and was moved to wonder at the brilliance that people express. When he stood on that mountain, looking out over the world, seeing the interconnectedness of the biological sphere, he saw us in it. The wonder and the tragedy of human being. All month we've been talking about this brilliant man, a person who, through his energy and effort, changed the way our culture thinks, changed the way we do. And we have been looking particularly not just at his legacy, but how it connects to our own Unitarian Universalist tradition. Because he broke into the Western mind at the very moment that our own tradition was coming into being. The Universalist tradition coming into origination just at the end of the 18th century, late 1700s, and the Universalists right at the turn into the 19th century. The Transcendental movement, which has done so much for all of our thinking and spiritual practice, emerged right as Humboldt was breaking onto the consciousness of our culture. And his influence is simply profound. A few weeks ago, we looked at the first principle of Unitarian Universalism, the inherent worth and dignity of all people. And we talked about how through Humboldt we see this not only as an ethical principle, we treat other people the way we want to be treated, right? Be nice to the person sitting next to you and also the person across the street and also the person on the other side of the world. We hear that in his own life and practice. But even more, that we are part of a cosmos of beauty, of wonder, and therefore we are beauty and wonder too. Our inherent worth and dignity is a source of awe for us. Ethics and awe. And we've talked about our seventh principle, that we are part of a web of life, interconnected being, for which we hold respect and for which we hold responsibility. This is the great legacy of Humboldt. All of his scientific research pushes towards this. No person works alone, and by no means was he the only important scientist of his age. But we would not be the same people who think in the same way without him. Today we want to think about our fifth principle, democratic practice in our congregations and in our society. When Humboldt looked out from that mountain, he saw nature and human being in it, and that it spoke about what human life in society could be. That nature itself speaks to us a way to live together as people. Messy, complex, interconnected, dangerous, but a place where life can provide for mutual thriving, co-flourishing, as one of our Latinx partners in the community would say. A world that can create life for everyone, shared life. And in the tremendous failures of human culture around the world and through time, in all the ways that we've tried to organize and govern ourselves, democracy is a pretty poor job, but the best we've come up with so far. And Humboldt's research instigated democratic thought and challenges to democratic thought in the United States and in Latin America and in Europe. He wrote during the time of Napoleon, when Europe was at war with itself. When he sailed to the Americas, he risked his life going through naval blockades to just get out so he could do science. And his understandings of the violence of empire, the things that he wrote about his own culture and what he saw in colonial Spain, pushed against authoritarianism in all its forms. When he traveled from South America into North America and visited the United States, he praised the experiment in democracy that were only the first few decades of our nation's history, and challenged outright the devastating agricultural practices that were already eroding our land, and the practice of enslavement that was destroying the soul of our country as it was trying to be born. Humboldt's vision of nature, human being, is not just science. It was politics, not partisanship, but the terribly difficult, messy, and necessary question of how do we live together in this world? Question that we are facing today. How do we live together in this world? Our world is terribly broken. Humboldt stood on the shores of Lake Valencia in South America and watched as the people who lived around this lake worried over the dropping water levels year after year, and watched as they cut down acre after acre after acre of forested land up the sides of hills, and experienced flooding and washout with every heavy rainfall, and struggled to wonder why their farmland yielded less and less each year. He made a study of this lake, about how it had no outlet to the sea, and therefore its water loss was due entirely to evaporation, and studied how deforestation leads to violent runoff of rainwater rather than the absorption of water slowly into the soil through root systems. And took that research not only to that group of people, but throughout his research of the entire continent, and began to identify how human beings, heedless of the environment, destroy the very ground on which we're trying to stand. This was the first great thinker of human-caused climate change, documented with ways to change the practice. And he advocated in the White House, in Napoleonic France, in a book that was used by Simón Bolívar to overthrow Spanish rule in South America, advocated for ways of living in harmony with the world that can provide for human being and provide for the rest of life too. Democracy is not just how we vote, but everybody vote. Democracy is not just organizing ourselves in congregations and community groups, but get involved in what we're doing here. Democracy is respecting the right of living things to live so that you can live and I can too. When Humboldt stood on that mountain and looked out at the whole world, he had a vision of nature that was intensely democratic. Life should be shared by everyone. A vision of mutual flourishing, co-flourishing for us all. And he took the imagination of his science and pressed against the power of his day for his entire life to say that every human being and every being has a right to exist. And we should make space for that. Standing there on that mountain, looking out at the whole world spread before him, loving it and worrying for it, caring so deeply in ethic and awe for what life is. His vision went even deeper. And he sensed, as he says, there's a single life poured out on everything. I would say a single life welling up through everything. This man of empiricism and infinite detail sensed there is some unifying force moving through everything, connecting everything, giving life to all. A oneness that demands awe and ethic, responsibility to love and strive every day for a place on this planet for every one of us.
Please stand as you're willing and able and join me in singing hymn number 1074 in the Teal hymnal, Turn the World Around. This is a tricky one to follow, but if you can just join me wherever you can.
come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Woo! So is life. Ah, so is life. Woo! So is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Word is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa. So is life. Thank you.
As we extinguish our chalice representing the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope, we hear the words offered during the sermon by our guest speaker last Sunday, voting rights activist Charles Mann. We must stand up because what happens to me happens to you. We are all fighting for our freedoms and rights, whether you and I realize it or not. I will say to you what my mother would often say to me. My mother would often say to me, "What you gonna do now? What you gonna do?"
Democracy is shared life, shared power, so that we all can live. For our benediction today, I want to ask us to give a standing ovation to every person, the ones we can see here and the ones who are out there in the foyer, the ones who stood in the pulpit today, the ones who have given love and care, the ones who are with us virtually, the ones who drive patrol cars, the ones who work in social service agencies, every person who has worked for our shared life together. What you gonna do? Let's say thank you to every one of them. Let's give them a standing ovation. Ethic and awe. What you gonna do?
We have spent time together, and these